Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. And you know it's morning because I'm doing a video. That's the time of day when I'm most coherent and can actually record a video. Now, before we get started, I'd like to make an announcement. I'm happy to say that my channel has hit a milestone. One of my videos has over 60 views. This is what it's like to go viral. Anyway, as you can see, I'm wearing yet another of the Long Coffin Man superhero outfits. Starting, of course, with the slippers, the nice soft pajama bottoms, a race shirt, because I did that. By the way, concerning races, if you or anyone you know happens to be a runner, this race should be on their bucket list. And when I say this race, it's actually a few different races. In November, the folks at Navajo Yes put on a marathon, a half marathon, and a 4-mile fun run in Monument Valley. Then, in early March, they do almost the same thing, except that the longest race is a 50K. So if you want to get an ultra in just a stunning area, go check out Navajo Yes and check out the races there, especially the Monument Valley race. You'll thank me later. Anyway, back to the milestone. For everyone who has viewed, who has hit the like button, who subscribed and made comments, I really appreciate it. And if you haven't, do it. Alrighty, this next video here explores how I reached the lofty status of participant in a drug study or trial. And I'm not sure what the difference is. But anyway, we're going to talk about how I made it and how I became a participant. Indeed, when it comes to drug studies, these folks don't take just anyone. To qualify for this study, I had to undergo a multi-phase examination process, which include interviews, questionnaires, blood tests, and full body cavity searches. All right, I made that last part up. First, I had to be referred to the folks conducting this study here in Colorado, which, by the way, is one of 20 locations in the United States that is actually participating in the study. In terms of qualifying, well, let's just say here's where it gets interesting. And when I say interesting, that's interesting as in the old curse, may you live in interesting time. Now, part of the inclusion criteria to get into the study is, and sorry, I gotta read this, to be evaluated on the PROMIS Cognitive Function Scale, the SF8 form, which of course we all know and love. You following along? By the way, PROMIS stands for Patient Reported Outcomes Measurement Information System. Please pay attention. There'll be a quiz at the end.
What are we doing? What's going on?
Okay, I'm going to try not to get too much into the weeds, but you kind of need to know what's going on and how everyone gets evaluated against this PROMIS. For the PROMIS cognitive function scoring, the mean population is a score of 50 with a 1 standard deviation of 10. So 50's right in the mean there. Scores below 50 indicate decreased cognitive function. And for this particular study, the folks are looking for people who have a cognitive function score of 40 or less. And again, 40 then becomes 1 standard deviation below the population norm. To be specific, to qualify, that means I had to score a 40 or less, well below the general population. Ouch.
That's the rule. That's the goal now.
Now, some of you may be thinking, well, geez, couldn't you always have had a cognitive function score well below the general population? And to that I say, how dare you? Seriously, I've always had a fairly high opinion of myself, that is before long COVID, which can be a bit humbling. But I always thought that, well, I was with the general population or maybe slightly above. I am definitely below that now. I really wanted to know better what the heck this scoring means. And for that deep dive, that rabbit hole, I went to the Digital Services Hub website. I found the information that I'm about to talk about from that website. I came across this nifty little chart. And here again, you can see where the 50 line is. That is pretty much the general population average. The 40 line, 1 standard deviation below, you can see where that line is. And of note there in the bottom, you can see that it says if you're on the right of the 49 or below the cognitive function score of 40, you're in the bottom 20% of the population. Now, I know it doesn't say bottom 20%, it says 20%, but a score of 40 or below certainly isn't in the upper 20%. So my cognitive function is in the bottom 20% of the population. Double ouch. If that wasn't bad enough, this chart is followed by another one, and it's a doozy. This chart basically says that those folks with a score of 40 or below are on the low end when it comes to all these things. And I'm going to read them out because it's a lot. The low end of companionship, life satisfaction, meaning and purpose, physical activity, positive effect, satisfaction, and participation in social roles and activities, self-efficacy, sexual function and satisfaction, and social support. Well, that seems to cover just about everything. Now, I actually don't look at all that as being a negative. I mean, before I got long COVID, I really had no excuse for being an asshole in my personal relationships. But now I do. Sorry, I want to empathize more, but I've got long COVID. Anyway, concerning that list, it's the big triple ouch. So, bottom line, I met all the inclusion criteria and none of the exclusion criteria to get into the study. So, I win? Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody for making this possible. And I have to say, I worked really hard to get this trophy. At least, I think I did. I don't really remember. Where am I? In case you haven't figured it out, I attempt humor a lot. Sometimes I use it to help cope as far as getting through difficult periods. Sometimes, admittedly, I use it as deflection. And sometimes I use it as a combination of the two. I learned to use humor as a go-to survival mechanism when I was growing up, and it usually works out fairly well. Admittedly, on occasion, I do put my foot in my mouth. So I joke about qualifying for the study, but it actually felt a little bit more like this.
Are there any questions?
And yeah, I did use a clip from that movie intentionally. When my most negative thoughts creep in, I do kind of agonize over whether my cognitive function, my mental state, will continue to decrease. Plus, the long silence in the video clip seems appropriate. And I get it, because before I got long COVID, if somebody had told me that they were having health concerns, medical issues, chronic illness, I would have been empathetic. I would have felt bad for them for probably a solid minute. And then my brain would have pushed that out to start thinking about whatever priorities I had going on in the moment, or whatever seemed like a priority at the time. And well, now let's just say the view's a bit different on this side. So, bottom line, I was in. I made the grade. I got to participate in the drug study, and it just finished up a little bit ago. In one of my next videos, I'm going to talk about actually participating in the study. And spoiler alert, it was 95% positive. To know what that 95% positive was and what the 5% negative was, you're just going to have to watch that video. But for now, we've reached the end.
Did you enjoy the film?
Hopefully you did find this video informative, interesting, and not too much of a downer. My next video won't actually be about participating in the drug study, but that is coming. My next video will talk about actually what gets me down and what I do when that happens. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button, subscribe, provide a comment, and share this with your friends. I look forward to chatting with you then. But for now, I've got to scoot.